So when I was getting ready to shoot this video, I was trying to come up with like a nice little catchy saying to say in the beginning to say how the Orlando Apollos are the only undefeated team in Alliance American football. But I couldn't think of anything that didn't sound cheesy, corny, or just plain old stupid. So Orlando Apollos are undefeated. Let's just kick it off from right there. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Mike Floyd with the Turf Toe Show, bringing you every week your recap of Alliance American football. If you like these videos, hit like, share, subscribe, and let's get to the recap. So the first game I want to kick off is the San Diego Fleet playing the Memphis Express. Memphis Express finally picked up a win in Memphis against the San Diego Fleet, who have been a really hot team as of late. They won their last two home games against the Commanders, and I forgot the other team that they played, but it's neither here or there. But they lost 23-26 to the Express. I said coming into this game that it's going to come down to the Memphis defense actually stepping up and making some big plays for them. Also, the big thing that came with this game as well is the fact that Zach Mettenberger was now the starting quarterback for the Express. Like, if you follow any of my videos, you know that I'm not a fan of Christian Hackenberg. I've been saying that he needs to get benched for the longest. Well, it seems like Singletary and the crew finally listened to everybody, like all the announcers, like pretty much everybody said, hey, bench old dude. They benched him. Zach Mettenberger came in. He went 18-25 for 174 yards and 1 TD. His first drive kind of had me kind of shook a little bit when it was like, okay, this is the Zach that we knew when he played for the Tennessee Titans. But then he kind of he got into that rhythm, and he finally got into a mode where he wasn't really taking any super shots downfield. I think he took one that was toward the end zone, but he kind of underthrew it, so it kind of bounced off the defender's back, and they didn't get the touchdown on that one. But all of his passes were pretty much short, intermediate passes. It was mainly, new offense, not really new offense, but a new quarterback. You want to get them. They haven't worked with him with the snap counts, stuff like that, because you see early on a bunch of penalties that they had, offensive, like offsides and stuff like that. But it wasn't too bad of a game for him. It's his first win since 2014, since he was at LSU. Now, if you remember, when he played at LSU, he had OBJ and Jarvis Landry. So you had two big-time receivers, so you had to win some games there, but he never won a game with the Tennessee Titans. It's been since 2014, so this is a big win for him. On the San Diego Fleet side, Philip Nelson ended up getting hurt, I think in the second quarter, if I remember correctly. He was 9 for 12. Alex Ross actually came in, went 8-18, 80 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. So they're now, the San Diego's having a problem with their quarterbacks. They're having a bunch of injury problems. So they're going to either bring somebody else in, because I think they've actually already stated that they're going to be trying to bring another quarterback in to be the fourth string, or they're just running out of quarterbacks. They need something out there, and Alex Ross was not able to generate any real offensive pressure against that Express defense. On the rushing side of the fence, we saw last week how the Fleet's running game just dismantled the Commanders all day long. Jaquan Gardner and Terrell Watson were just running all over them. Terrell Watson went for 10 carries, 43 yards, and then Jaquan Gardner, he had 9 for 6. I think Gardner had that big giant 80-something plus yardage run the week prior. Well, he didn't really do anything this year. On the Memphis side, Zach Stacy's went 18-39. He had no TDs. Sherman Battier, he had a big game last week as well, had 6 carries for 12 yards. So the running game really wasn't there. It was mainly just the defense. The defense actually stepped up really big time for the Memphis Express. On the defensive side for the Memphis Express, Drew Jackson, 13 tackles, 13 solo tackles. He had 1 interception and 4 pass deflections. Dude was just flying over the field. So pretty much it's going to come down to Memphis having to just, if Memphis' defense can play like this every week, and now that they got a quarterback who can actually keep them off the field a little bit to let them get a break, they're going to be all right. This is going to be an all right team. San Diego on the other side, I mean, it was a tough loss for them, but they did lose their quarterback halfway through. So, of course, that L was about to happen. Plus, he was playing against a motivated team who needed a win to actually make it look like they're a legitimate team. But we all knew they were better than this. They just needed to change that quarterback, and lo and behold, change the quarterback, they get a dub. So it's a good win for the Memphis fans. The next game up was the Orlando Apollos playing the Salt Lake Stallions. The Apollos, like I said in the beginning of the video, are riding high. They're 4-0 right now. They're the only undefeated team. They won 20-11 in a pretty bad weather game. It was just snowing like crazy out there. I mean, they had kids building snowmen in the stadiums, like the stadium steps. There was jokes on the internet talking about how those snowmen were like helping the attendance numbers out there in Salt Lake. But to be honest with you, I don't like the cold, so I can't blame the fans for not showing up to that a weather game like that. So that's gonna be a big problem. It's gonna be with the Alliance American football, even the XFL too, because they're gonna be playing these open air stadiums in northern cities. I don't know a lot of people that's gonna want to go see games in that kind of weather. I mean, there's diehard football fans who are gonna see it, but selling it to the public, just the normal who wants to go see just a football game randomly on the weekend, it might be kind of hard. So they might have to find some of these smaller stadiums that are in domes or stuff like that, because San Antonio plays in a dome. They could probably pack that place out during the cold weather game. But being outside, like we just saw with the Salt Lake team, is going to be kind of iffy up in the air, especially if they try to go further north than that. So we were talking about Portland, we're talking about Iowa, we're talking about teams like Chicago, places like that. They might be used to it, but they might not be willing to pay that kind of money to see an upstart league at this moment playing in the spring when the weather's pretty bad. But I digress. Back to the game. The head ball coach ended up getting the win on this one. It was pretty much a rushing game. Joe Buganoon, whatever his name is, he had 8 carries for 30 yards. Brendan Oliver had 17 carries for 71 yards for the Salt Lake Stallions. Lando Paulos, Devion Smith had 12 carries, 51 yards. Hakeem Hunt had 8 for 35. He also had a touchdown. Passing game, Garrett Gilbert did his thing, 22 of 32, just balling out, 244 yards, 1 TD. Josh Woodrum didn't have a bad game either, 16 for 22, 161 yards. He didn't have any passing touchdowns. Everything was just rushing, but he had the 2-point conversion. So it was just mainly back and forth. I mean, it was field goals that were just keeping everybody in the game. It was kind of funny because the announcers kept talking about like, oh, it's gonna be super hard to kick in these conditions, putting the ball down and the kickers slipping on the ice and everything. The kickers actually did pretty good. I mean, they actually kick better in the bad elements than they do when it's nice and sunny out. So, hey, let's just have it snow every game. We'll see some of the best kicking ever. I really don't have much for this game. I mean, to me, it was slick boring. I mean, it was nice seeing these guys playing the weather like this, seeing the run games. But the one thing I did notice that the Stallions do is they play their man coverage super soft. So they're allowing the Apollos just to get all these underneath routes, and they're just dumping and just getting huge chunks of yardage because the guys were just backing up so far just because they didn't want Garrett Gilbert to beat them deep, that they were just allowing these guys to march down the field. And as soon as they started creeping back up and then manning up on these receivers, they were just running the ball right down their gullet. So they got to work on their defensive coverage. Like, either you're gonna just not play as soft for if you're not going to play as soft for your zone coverage, you got to lock it in just a little bit, because I understand it was snowing. The vision was probably harder, and they wanted to see the receivers in front of them, but still though, like, it was way too soft, and they should have been an adjustment during halftime, because it was the entire game they kept doing that to them. So next week, the Lando Paulos, who are once again 4-0, are going to go down to Birmingham and play the Birmingham Iron, who just happened to lose to the San Antonio Commanders. So now they're 3-1. This game was a defensive battle the entire time. The San Antonio Commanders ended up winning 12-11, and straight up, the Birmingham Iron has been figured out. Essentially, if you take away their run game and force Luis Perez to beat you, he can't really do it. Well, he can do it. The thing is, if you take away those those crossing routes that he loves right in the middle of the field, you take away pretty much anything he can do. As long as you shut down Trent Richardson like they did, but even though he did get his 1 touchdown, so he keeps the streak alive of scoring a touchdown in every single game, the Birmingham Iron cannot beat you in the air. That's the thing with them. They're not going to beat you on the outsides. All their passing is straight in the middle. And the San Antonio Commanders obviously watched a lot of game film and noticed that, and just took away everything in the middle from him. Luis Perez went 19 of 39, 202 yards. He threw an untimely interception. Two interceptions actually. It was one right at the end of the game, was when they went for the onside play where it's like 4th and 25 or something crazy like that. But that first interception though, he was running toward the sideline, right? When the receiver that he was throwing to he was barely running. He looked like he was looking for somebody to block, because it looked like Luis was going for a scramble, just going to take off with the ball. Luis actually ends up throwing it, gets it intercepted, and then that just leads for a Commander score, where Kenneth Farrell just trucked it down the field. Kenneth Farrell had 30 carries for 142 yards. Dude was just balling out. Logan Woodside for the Commanders, he had 11 for 25, 106 yards. Not his best game. It was more dependent on the run game. The running game was pretty good for the Commanders, except for 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter, when the Birmingham Iron just turned into this giant wall and would not let those dudes on 8 tries even get into the end zone. That was it's like 7 tries. That was super impressive, where Kenneth Farrell could not get into the end zone multiple times. They stuffed him behind the line every single time. That right there is like textbook. It should be sent to like every high school, every college, every pro team. This is how you play goal line defense. If the Commanders on the other side should have been taking notes, because they let Trent Richardson just run up in there. Now I understand Trent Richardson is a bigger dude than Kenneth Farrell, but the way the Birmingham Iron did that was perfect. It was just beautiful. A couple notes that I had for the Commanders game: Area 51 slowly getting their Area 51. The cornerbacks and secondary for the Commanders are finally getting their mojo back a little bit. They're not playing. They're playing a lot smarter now. Like they're not getting beat deep anymore. They're forcing these QBs to play their game now. See, I don't know how they're going to do when they play against Arizona. The Hotshots, they got a quarterback who can sling the ball too. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how they do, because we saw how Orlando, who has a decent quarterback, can light them up. So they went against a quarterback today. So when the cats from Arizona comes out and they just start throwing them deep, it's going to be a battle for them. Another note for the Birmingham Iron is they got to figure out why they start out so slow. Their defense is keeping them in games, but their offense is starting out super slow. They don't start really doing any adjustments until like the second quarter, because they didn't actually score until the second quarter. They got a field goal in the second quarter. They got 3 points there. They didn't score at all in the third. They got them 8 points in the fourth quarter. I don't want to say the receivers are good. It's just once you rush Luis Perez out the box and you force him to scramble, he's ineffective, completely ineffective. He's a pocket passer through and through. Because every time the Commanders would come from the outside and push him toward his left, or actually toward his right, every single time, he could not get a pass off. So if I'm the next team, if I'm the Apollos, I'm looking at that and I'm just rushing him from his blind side every single time, forcing him to his right. And then if you take away the middle routes, they're done. They're not going to be doing anything. I mean, yeah, Trent Richardson can run the ball. They might have to switch it up. If I was Birmingham, I would actually run Brandon Ross a lot more. He seems to be more effective, and just put Trent Richardson on the goal line, just save him for that. Just let him bruise down there. 20 yards to the goal line, that's where I'll use Trent Richardson. But Brandon Ross, I'd run him the entire game. Okay, so the last game of the night was Atlanta Legends versus Arizona Hotshots. At the time of this game, before the game started, Atlanta Legends were the last team not to win a game. They had all this trouble with the offensive coordinators. They had lost their offensive coordinator like 2 days before the last game started when they played the Iron. They were having problems at the quarterback. Like, it was just a dysfunctional team. And I kept stating that, like, hey, you got Aaron Murray sitting on the bench. Matt Sims might not be the answer. You might need to put him in the game. Well, Atlanta finally got the deal today. They beat the Arizona Hotshots 14-11. So now this is two teams who haven't won a game, who have now beaten top tier teams. So you've had Memphis Express beat the San Diego Fleet, who was like who was actually number 1 in the Western Conference at the time, to actually tie with the Arizona Hotshots. So they got taken down, and then the Arizona Hotshots, who were tied for the number 1 position in the West as well, got taken down by the Atlanta Legends. So I guess watching game film actually pays off, and actually getting the offensive coordinator in actually helps you guys out. I mean, the new offensive coordinator, Kim Stamhezi, he used to coach for the Cleveland Browns. He was one of the guys that was like real instrumental in getting Baker Mayfield to the position that he's at now. He comes in and he just starts dialing up some plays, and they start marching down the field again. So it's pretty cool. So the first drive, actually, they were marching down the field with Matt Sims. Then Atlanta does Atlanta type stuff. Matt Sims gets hit, fumbles the ball, turns over and downs. And it was just like, at that point, I was just like, okay, it's about to be another one of those games. Arizona's about to run all over this team, whatever. Then when they started saying like, hey, Matt Sims is not coming back in the game, he has a jacked up hand, and I was like, oh, they got Aaron Murray in here? Aaron Murray went in there and started slinging that ball around. They got all the way down to the red zone, and they started doing Atlanta type stuff again. They went for it on 4th and goal, didn't get it. And then they went for like a fake field goal, didn't get it. It was just like, dude, like, what are y'all doing? They managed to score a safety, which was the first safety recorded in like Alliance American football history. That was pretty dope. But then they just started doing their thing. Aaron Murray ended up with 20 of 33, 254 yards. So had an Aaron Murray type game. Matt Sims was 1 for 1, 33 yards, which he should be. He shouldn't be playing anymore. So hopefully the offensive coordinator for the Legends and the head coach aren't like, hey, we're gonna put Matt Sims back in. Like, no, ride this hot hand you got with Aaron Murray. John Wolford didn't have a great game. He was 17 of 31, 185 yards, 1 TD. He had the 1 2-point conversion. Aaron Murray was just all over the field. He had 7 carries, 54 yards. Brandon Radcliffe had 12 carries, 48 yards. And his longest was 15. And Denard Robinson had a rushing touchdown. For the Arizona Hotshots, Jarrell Presley, 14 carries, 26 yards. So mainly it came down to not the Arizona, but the Atlanta Legends defense actually stepped it up big time. They started showing like signs of being pretty decent last week when they played against the Iron. But at that time I was watching, I was like, I don't know, it's the Iron. They're really predicated on the run game. If they don't have a run game, you shut down the run game, Paris is not going to beat you. So they stepped it up against a guy, Wolford, who's known to sling the ball around. He was, I think at the time, he had the most completions in AAF history or some crazy stat like that. Well, they kept him from throwing TDs. I mean, he threw a couple deep passes down the sidelines, but that defense stepped up big time. I mean, it wasn't no iron defense, it wasn't no express defense, but it was just enough defense to get them the dub. All I know is they need to fire whoever keeps coming up with these stupid ideas for fake field goals, going for it on 4th and goal. Whoever's telling them like, hey, we need to do this stuff, just stop. Just get the points. Just get the points so you don't have a situation where you come down to 3 minutes left in the 4th quarter to where you're freaking out if you need to get a field goal. Because if you would have had the first field goal at the beginning of the game, you wouldn't have to worry about that kind of stuff, my guy. Like, just get the points on the board. That's what everybody's saying. Like, stop going for these fakes. We understand you wanted to get your first touchdown. You finally got a rushing touchdown when you got to the red zone. I know y'all was like dying for one of those, but when there's points, don't give up those extra points, man. It's just dumb. Great job on Atlanta side. They finally got it there. They're not gonna be that one squad that goes, you know, no wins the whole season. They finally got a dub, so maybe they don't win another game, but at least they can say, hey, we beat one of the best teams in the league right now. We got to win in our first season. So it's on the road. So, and playing a pretty hot team. So I'll give them that. No pun intended. So a couple notes that I took after watching all 4 games is, one, the commercial that's the Shazam movie looks like it's gonna be trash. Just want to put that out there. I'm not gonna see it. Looks like trash to me. Whatever. They got a new sponsor. Good for them. They're obviously, you're starting to see what happens when these teams are getting tape on these other quarterbacks now. Especially like when, like I was saying with the Commanders, they got good tape on Luis Perez. They got the game plan to beat them now. So I expect the Apollos, when they come in next week to Birmingham, to just they'll just destroy the Birmingham Iron. They're gonna have to beat them real quick. But as long as you don't let Perez just throw in the middle of the field, they're gonna be good. I want to see who's gonna win between Memphis and Atlanta, because technically, if neither one of those teams would have won this week, one of them would have won next week, so they would have got a dub. So we're gonna see who's the top tier of the bottom ranked teams right now. I'm expecting a Memphis to pull the win out on this one. I do think their defense is just a little bit better. My third little takeaway this week was the refereeing was a little bit better this time. The Skycam was like, those guys were on point this week. They were just like, yo, this is what it is. Bam, 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 bam. They still got some audio issues they got to work out. I noticed that they kind of move like their announcers around, and you know they're getting better at, you know, cutting people off when they need to be cut off. So the broadcasters are getting a lot better. Though I know last week I was talking about the Bleacher Report broadcast. It looked kind of crappy to me, like the angles they were using. I guess they got a bunch of feedback because it was nice and crisp this time. So it was on point, digging it. I didn't feel like I was in like a topsy-turvy, like just swinging back and forth with that Skycam. It was pretty smooth this time. And the last thing I want to talk about is, I understand that we want people to come out and see the games, but can we please, for the love of God, on the subreddits and on Twitter and everything else, stop worrying about attendance numbers. I get it that you want to see fans in the stands, but I think they're more worried about people getting the eyeballs on the games. So I think me personally, I'm more focused on how many people are actually watching the game on the screen, because that's the numbers. That's how you sell ad revenue. Yeah, like they want to make the ticket sales and sell the merchandise, stuff like that. That's cool and all. And it's nice to see like, oh, the Commanders had 22,000 people, or you know, the San Diego Fleet had, you know, 15,000 people. When we know there's gonna be some games where there's only be like 9,000, 5,000 people there, especially when there's like a bad weather game or your team hasn't won a game yet. So we gotta stop. Personally, I think we gotta stop focusing on those attendance numbers and just worry about the brand of football, like the style of football that's on the field. Because if the quality of football is good, the people will come. That's the thing. If you build it and it's legit, people will start paying attention to it. As long as the broadcasts are good and you talk to people about it and they actually go check it out on YouTube and like the little clips and everything, the people will start looking into it more, and they'll probably end up by next season filling out those stands. That's just my opinion. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this recap. If you like this video, hit like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and just stay tuned for the next recap.